Now, it's back to best of threes. We're up against Legion. And I forgot to change these things. What, ITO Legion? I think that's spelled correctly. The O is supposed to be a 0, but that's good enough. Score is 0. There we go. And nice. We brought ourselves a nice little blob build against his counts. We have a bunch of AoEs using Silostra. And if he doesn't have Graveguard, he's in for some trouble. He does have one unit of Graveguard great weapons. They're going to be moving in, punishing me a tiny bit, but we're not too worried here. I feel like our box, we have enough spells to take them out. And then these rotting Prometheans with guns should be able to clear things up quite well. Gunnery White is going to be picking away at targets. He has a very nice long-ranged attack. And once we get close enough, our Necrofex Colossus can start hitting these Crypt Ghouls too. Hellbats are flying around, but we've gone for a full ground build. Means my opponent doesn't have too many options to really use those bats. He can fly them in to hit my bombers, but that's about it. We have the Mourngull Haunter, which can help out. And now that our Necrofex is in range, we're going to start burning down these Crypt Ghouls. They're more expensive than the zombies, so that's the most efficient option we have currently. Now we just sit here and begin throwing bombs with the bombers. They should get their volleys off in a second. The bats do fly in, but they should still be able to fire nonetheless. And here we go, the fighting has begun. I'm expecting some breath attacks to come down on top of me, and we'll see how effective those are. Meanwhile, the Gallows Giant will continue firing away key targets, and we'll bring in the Prometheans to use their mass against the Black Coach. Silostra and throw down her debuffs, perhaps a Song of Enthrallment, but I don't think it's really needed here yet. We'll make sure to keep her close inside the blob, so that she doesn't die. And we're seeing the dragon actually land here. We're going to bring in our troops, slow him down, and hopefully get a pick. Let's see here. Nice, his speed is now very low, down to 58, but actually still fast enough to escape. Seems like we might have misplayed a tiny bit there, but we're still doing okay. Gallows Giant is still able to fire. We'll target down the Graveguard, as they are pretty important targets. Rotting Prometheans are in a good place. And we want to throw down some scraths now onto the Crypt Ghouls where we can. But it looks like the bombers are actually making short work of that anyways, so we'll just hit up these zombies. That should work just as well. Now, let's see. Some more Crypt Ghouls have come in through the back, and we'll want a way to deal with them. There's also these Feasters in the Dark coming on in, but we do have our cavalry summon, and I think we'll bring them in now to charge into the backs of these guys. The bombers have guard mode on, which allow them to fire in combat. That should work out rather well. We still have a lot of our spells too, and I guess we're really just saving it for the Graveguard at this point. We can give ammunition to the bombers just to buff their damage a tiny bit. And we're going to see where we can use these spells. We're actually running pretty low on infantry now. A bit of a worry. But perhaps this Vangeist Revenge will be able to hit these Graveguard rather hard. That may be able to help us out here. He does pull back. I didn't wait for the slow. It does hit a few troops. It pulls back my opponent's forces a tiny bit, but things are still a little bit sketchy. Now, for the Kraken's pull, we're going to move in Silostra so that we can slow this unit of Graveguard. Actually, instead we're going to keep her here since it looks like a big blob is accumulating. So we'll bring her in close. We'll throw down the slow, throw down a Kraken's pull, and hopefully kill out all of those Graveguard units. So there we go, we've cast it down. And nice, a pretty solid cast. Silostra still in the midst too, she should be able to do rather well. And we have another Scab Scrath coming up to hit this group of infantry. So Kraken's Pull doing pretty good, killing the Crypt Ghouls. It doesn't have a ton of AP, so the Graveguard will still live. And Scabscrath coming down, but the Graveguard are pretty scary. Nevertheless, balance of power still in our favor thanks to the single entities. But I'm a little bit worried here. The saving grace is that these Rotting Prometheans will be able to do quite well, as they have regeneration, and the Graveguard Great Weapons have taken a lot of damage. And also the fact that his Legion's Lord is rather low is a good situation, but our troops are getting more and more surrounded by the second Thylostra, with very low winds of magic regeneration, and the Lord finally coming in. We'll see how this plays out. His cycle charging will be very painful to my troops, and we're going to want to punish him for landing as much as we can, just sending in our lords and infantry to try and catch him. We have many slows. The Mourngull Haunter should be able to put in pretty nice damage against him. However, he does take off. And how's our Gunnery Wight doing? He's taking a bit of damage from these black coaches. Definitely not optimal. But we may be able to take some picks here. It looks like the Lord is landing again. Actually in a little bit of an awkward position. We might be able to catch him out. So we'll send in all of our troops once again to try and hit him, pin him down, and if we can kill him here, that would be huge for us. We're going to Song of Enthrallment to slow him, and hopefully our mass can pin him down. The slows are great too. Rotting Prometheans are slowing him down. Looks like he will escape, but not before getting punished. Nearly have another Kraken's Pull too, but my opponent, he's still doing pretty well. The fact that all of these Graveguard Great Weapons are still around is definitely a huge problem still. And it's doing a lot of damage to my Rotting Prometheans. Now the Lord lands in once again. He's going to be cycle charging, and we almost have another Kraken's Pull, which may be our saving grace here. Let's see, just need another second before we can cast it down. And here we go. We're going to hope that this saves us. It'll catch a lot of the infantry here. The Viking, or not the Viking, Legion trying to pull out his troops. But we get a pretty nice cast. However, I don't think it will be able to kill everything here. There's still a lot of armor, and the single entities are still rather threatening. Black coaches moving in too. But it looks like this will likely be it as soon as the Rotting Prometheans fall. Let's see. Von Carstein Lord landing once again. But his healing is keeping him pretty safe. Necromancer is also engaged, and we'll see if we can snipe him out. Gallows Giant will be doing its best. And we do get a unit of zombie deckhands getting chopped by the Gallows Giant. And that's going to help us a tiny bit. So we'll see how that plays out. Another slow from Silostra and General debuff. We'll see if the Mourngull Haunter can catch this Von Carstein Lord. He's really our only hope here. And he sort of operates like a Varghul. He doesn't do too much damage. So we'll see how this goes. Graveguard are still alive. They're crumbling. But the Necromancer nearby causes a lot of problems. Let's see. There's only one unit of Graveguard left though, which is a plus. But I don't think Silostra can really do much here. The Mourngull Haunter is nice, but the Von Carstein Lord hasn't hit his heal cap yet. That's going to be pretty rough. He's now coming in on top of Silostra, and at this point, I think Legion has won it. We just have to see if we get some good RNG and hopefully catch him with our two monsters remaining here. The Mourngull Haunter still has his slows, so it makes it slightly easier to catch out the Von Carstein Lord. We have pushed him to his healing cap, so maybe there's a chance, but the Graveguard Great Weapons will still be a problem here. Looks like the Von Carstein Lord is positioning to charge into Silostra too, and that is going to be a bit of a worry. Let's see, you know what, I think it's going to be GG. He has enough cycle charges in him to win the game. So well played to Legion. Nice. Saving his Graveguard Great Weapons and having them really carry in the late game. Well played to him. And there we go. I think in the future, I'll probably want more tools to deal with these Graveguard. I don't think we could handle them better in the future for sure. If you look at the value of my units, the Rotting Prometheans did well. The Illustra did well, the Gunnery White did well, but my infantry collapsed pretty quickly. Bombers needed to be hitting these guys. And I guess I would send in my Knights Errant against them next time. Feels like a much better option. The black coaches were also really difficult to deal with. So I'm not sure. I might change things in the future. I'll probably cut the Gallows Giant actually, since it didn't seem as efficient as it could have been. For the second game against Legion, seeing some Ushapti moving up, appearing to movement to try and counter my Hell Cannon possibly. So we'll advance to counter. And yeah, we're playing Chaos against Tomb Kings. We have a lot of skirmish cavalry, which is great for stuff like the Necrotect and so on. And we can dodge Ushapti pretty easily. Some Sepulchral Stalkers moving in to counter my skirmishers. We'll just pull back from them. The Hell Cannon will just be trying to hit the best targets it can. We'll just see if we can hit up the Stalkers actually. Seems like a decent choice. And it looks like there's actually quite a few Stalkers that we'll have to worry about. The Ushapti too will be a little bit of a pain. But I think our skirmishers and Hell Cannons should be able to trade out on top here. Let's see, Ark in the Black is Spirit Leeching my caster at Overcast. So that should be fairly inefficient. As for the Hell Cannon, I guess we'll just continue shooting Tomb Guard here. Cavalry will do good trading up into these guys, and we can move in our mainline infantry here, since our skirmishers are keeping all of the large targets of my opponent occupied. Should be able to win the infantry fight. Our skirmishers should be able to beat the Stalkers. And our infantry, they're halberds. They don't have too much to worry about. Our caster, well, I guess he'll continue firing shots in at this Lich Priest of Death. Since it's actually Khalida, not a Ark in the Black. And we should actually be able to win out the trades here. Our infantry will do well, facing up against the Tomb King's infantry. The Hell Cannon, I guess, can continue firing in on the Stalkers. That should do well. We have Burning Heads at the ready to be cast wherever they're needed. Our Forsaken will have a pretty easy time clearing up all of the Tomb King's infantry. Nevertheless, we'll have to be careful to actually keep our guys protected. Let's see, we'll throw down a lightning bolt just to clear up that side a little bit faster. The Stalkers have grouped up to counter my skirmishers. So we'll want to make sure we avoid taking too much damage there. And Kolek is actually getting engaged on by this Sphinx. So a little bit worrying. We will be able to get a charge in on top of it, however, and we have a bunch of our skirmishers too. So we're not too worried there. The Hell Cannon can continue to pick off key targets, like these Stalkers. Kolek, we'll see how well he does against the Sphinx. Meanwhile, we'll throw down some fireballs, or some burning heads to clear out infantry, just to use up the magic before our caster dies. Kolek looks like he's doing okay. The Stalkers are getting nearby. We'll want to pull in our skirmishers to protect against them. And we'll see how well that does. We really don't want Kolek to take too much damage from these Stalkers. We'll send in our skirmishers into melee. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not. We'll have to see. And some fireballs to continue killing out the Lich Priest should work out okay. Now the Hell Cannon needs to be finding better targets. We'll turn it on top of the Ushapti. See how that does. We'll also bring in our unit of halberds that have been sitting in reserves, protecting the Hell Cannon. There's not a lot that Legion can bring in to really back up the to really shut down the Hell Cannon at this point. And Khalida's coming in, so I think we're going to retreat with Kolek. The Ushapti summon has gone down onto the Hell Cannon, but I think that should be okay. And with Khalida pinned down, I'm feeling more confident once again. We can even charge into her with Kolek, throw down another lightning bolt. And we have a pretty nice infantry advantage. Kolak should be able to win against Kalita, I believe. So we'll just keep chasing her. And another burning head to clear out the rest of this tomb guard puts us in a pretty nice position, given the fact that we have a full HP unit of halberds. Kolak, though, is getting rather low, and Kalita's moving in to shut him down, and it looks like he might actually die here. Definitely not a great position. We still have halberds, which is good, but Kolak's on the verge of routing. Definitely not great. We still managed to pull him into a safe position. He does route off the edge of the map. We have our halberds. There's not a lot of Tomb King's infantry left, but they have a lot of monstrous units. Pluses and minuses. Our skirmishers will be able to do well now that they've rallied, however. The Hell Cannon crew is gone. It's actually looking pretty bad. Kolak, however, he does come back, and in the late game, he will be quite formidable. The Lich Priest of Death is nearly dead, but so is our caster. We'll see if we can evacuate with him, but I do believe he will be dying here. And that means that we don't have any fireballs to finish off this Lich Priest. Another Spirit Leech might come down on Kolak, and that would be really bad for us. However, as long as we don't hit army losses, I think we're fine. He overcasts and dies, gets that Spirit Leech on Kolak, which means Kolak might actually die here. And I think that might just barely win it for my opponent. But I feel like our infantry would be able to carry it out, but we actually lose the game there. Oh, that's very unfortunate. I think our halberds could have won it, but we really threw away Kolak. That was pretty rough. And that's gonna be GG. Some misplays from me. Well earned by Legion. And nice. I guess we'll just queue up into the next best of 3 then. And yeah, the big misplay was I threw away Kolak there. Really nothing much about it. I guess we didn't have to advance as aggressively, and I let the Ushabti deal a lot of damage to my skirmishers. There was a lot of problems there. Yeah, we didn't really need the skirmish cavalry anyways, but you know, we should be fine. Moving on to the next game. Well played to Legion for the 2-0 victory. But here we go. For our game against Sveritrasm, we have a Vampire Coast Rush. Focusing on Mourngulls instead of Sirens, a coin flip choice. Scurvy Dogs to run into the lines after we've cleared up most of the infantry. And let's see, he has 2 great cannons, so we'll want to dodge with Silostra. Cannon shots coming in. Be able to negate most of the damage this way. The bomber bats will be flying in along the sides once we've disrupted enough here. Our gun bats can poke away at Volkmar. That will prevent him from getting most of his damage off. And after we push into the back lines, we should be just fine. Volkmar, he can't do much to really dive in. The gun bats will disrupt this area. Silostra with her summons can disrupt the rest. And then the Mourngulls will push in and take care of the infantry. The Sigmar Sons will be pushed through by Silostra. And then we should be fairly good to go. Now, the Free Company Militia have turned to cover the spear units. That means that they'll be relatively safe. And the cannons are shooting into my gun bats, picking off a few models, but in general, the cannons haven't done too much damage yet. So we're feeling fairly confident here. We'll move into this tiny little trench. And then we'll begin to get in our big engagement. Scurvy Dogs, they can't really move into the back because of these knights. And instead, I think they'll be better suited pushing into the front, but maybe 1 dog. Just because distracting the knights can be fairly effective. And now that our front line is finally in range, we can move in with Silostra. We'll throw in a Kraken's Pull onto these handgunners. They are not moving out of range, which means that they will now be getting disrupted quite severely. And we can move in with all of our forces, just trying to time our engagement so that the guns have as little time to fire as possible. We'll knock down these handgunners, summon our unit of cavalry, and then just charge into the lines of all this infantry. We can actually select them though. You can see the Kraken's Pull actually killing that unit of handgunners in entirety actually routing them off. That's why you overcast it, because it can really just demolish infantry. And with our cavalry running amok in the back line, we're feeling okay, except for the fact that we have lost a unit of scurvy dogs. That's pretty rough, but we'll be able to continue onwards. Our handgunners are still alive too. We'll use them to pick off this bright wizard. Now Volkmar is still quite a threat. We'll have to figure out a way to deal with them. Our handgunners, it's imperative that they stay alive. And the cavalry too is a little bit of a worry. However, for the infantry, our deck dropper bombers will be quite efficient here. And with our scurvy dogs, let's see, we'll pull them back. And we're going to use them to chase off all of these troops over here. That way Silostra doesn't have to do that, and instead she can focus on the bright wizard. And more cavalry has charged into my bombers, but we've actually just shredded the Empire infantry lines. It's really just their cavalry left in Volkmar. So all of our efforts will be put into dealing with that. The bright wizard, he does get routed off, but not before a final burning head. But we'll be able to chase them off with the gun bats, and then the hope is that we'll have enough left over to kill off Volkmar. It's a little bit of a risky proposition. As for the cavalry, we have our Morngulls, we have Silostra, we can probably terror rout them off. And as for Volkmar, he's not the best duelist himself, so Silostra might be able to function fairly well there too. Now the bright wizard has come back. We'll send in our dogs to take care of him. And as for Volkmar, we're going to duel him with Silostra now. We have our gun bats at the ready. They'll be picking away at him, dealing some pretty nice damage. And we have another Kraken's Pull too that we'll use on top of these handgunners just to finish them off. There's not a whole ton of targets left really for us, so we're just using our Winds of Magic best as we can. That'll take out the handgunners. The bright wizard has gone caught by the dogs. And it's Volkmar dueling up against Silostra now. She's not too worried about that, since she has all of this support. And it looks like Volkmar even trying to run away to safety now is a very good sign for us. We'll use our remaining Winds of Magic just to clean up any infantry that's around. And I think we've secured a pretty solid victory here. Just having really focused on all of the infantry has really paid off. There's not a lot left to really hold up all these zombies, and having just a couple halberds left will be really hard for my opponent to deal with. As for Volkmar, going to try his best to continue running, but we have enough ammunition where he's not too scary. And I think we're going to focus these cavalry, these knights instead, since they're going to be a little bit of a problem heading into the late game. Although, of course, hitting Volkmar too is quite important, but I think Silostra can deal with him. We'll have to see. We'll continue chasing him. We'll use our bombers to clear up the rest of these flagellants. And we'll just see if the single entities can carry into the late game. The knights are quite spread apart now. And our gun bats, we'll have to find a place for them. I think we went a little bit too hard on the anti-infantry, and it would have done really well to have another unit of handgunner bats. Since we can see here now, the problem is that we don't have a lot to really catch out knights and other single entities. If there was something like Gotrek here, that actually would have ended really badly for us, but nevertheless, Silostra, she can duke it out against Volkmar. Looks like she's actually winning quite well. That's because his melee defense and melee attack is rather low. So I think just based on that, we should be able to carry out the win. Our scurvy dogs don't really have any more targets, aside from this unit of spears, so I guess we'll send them in there. And then it's just chasing off Volkmar. He'll be able to keep away from Silostra, but if we group up our infantry together, that'll make it a little bit harder for him. As for all these Empire Knights, I guess we'll hit them with the bombs. They don't do a lot of damage, but they still have a lot of ammunition. So that's about the best value we can get there. And yeah, we can really see here. If he had Gotrek, we would be pretty screwed. But luckily he doesn't. The Empire Knights, we might as well send in our bats to bog them down. And it may even rout them off. And if it does, then it'll bring the balance of power closer in our favor. And if we can push them into army losses, then we're good. There we go. The cavalry has routed off. And it's going to be GG from my opponent. Well played, Sveritrasm. But we were able to take out a pretty clean victory. This is why you take those handgunner bats, taking out single entities. And if I would change this build, it would be to get a little bit less anti-infantry. We had the dogs, ground bombers, air bombers, and Silostra, which, by the way, 3,000 damage value, pretty good. But yeah, usually you don't need this much. I would replace a gun bat, maybe. I would replace a gun bat or I would replace a bomber bat for a gun bat. And then I'd feel a little bit more confident. But nevertheless, pretty fun build. So for our second game, we're up 1. Let's see if we can take out a victory. We've brought ourselves a pretty nice rush build with some counter skirmish. It looks like my opponent has gone for a similar build. However, we have double Shaga, and we expect them to perform quite well. A chariot to practice our chariot micro. And we want to get engaged as quickly as possible. My opponent, by far, has the skirmisher's advantage. And our horsemasters, our horsemen, can only counter for so long. He can waste a lot of his initial volleys, sort of just dancing around here. But we might want to save a little bit of that damage for the marauders instead. Our horsemen have actually taken a lot of damage so far, but they really want to be preventing damage that could go in on our more expensive units like the Chaos Spawn and so on. The chariots, however, will be able to do quite well. They'll just be charging straight into these savage orcs to start off. There aren't a whole ton of archers for my opponent, so we'll see how well that goes. These black orcs, we'll just throw down a pendulum right on top of them, since they might not be able to dodge. And that's a pretty nice initial trade. We're getting the frontline engagements underway, cycle charging through the black orcs, and we'll see if we can take out Grom the Paunch. Skirmishers are going to be real annoying, but let's see how it does. We do have a pretty nice advantage when it comes to our single entities here. The chariots should be able to do decently against these guys. Let's just see how well this front line goes. Our Shagath is taking a lot of damage. Bring in Kolek here to support. But actually it's a bit risky with that Goblin Big Boss, so we'll pull out to the safety of our infantry, then turn around and see if we can take out Grom. Moving in with moving in with Kolek. And there we go, we've also broken through the front line of my opponent. And if we can take out the Goblin Big Boss, that'd be a pretty nice swing. Our Chaos Spawn are doing decently here. But our chariots could be doing a bit more work. We're going to send them in onto the archers. The archers are putting in a lot of damage. We'll throw down another pendulum, like so. And then we'll see if our right flank holds. We do have Chosen there, so they should be able to do well. Grom takes a massive hit from Kolek, but in general, I think we're doing a little bit rough. Nevertheless, Grom is still taking a lot of damage. Our unit of Chosen are still at full HP. So that's definitely good. But our center line has collapsed rather quickly. Turns out the Black Orcs, indeed, were going to be a bit of a problem. But we still have our big monstrous units, and I'm hoping that our Chosen will be able to carry it out in the late game. For the archers of my opponent, skirmishers, they are running out of ammunition in the late game. It could be a bit of a problem. But as of right now, I think it should be okay. Chosen now taking a lot of damage from the Black Orcs, and I think chat was right. The Black Orcs are indeed a problem here. We'll still try to control as best as we can. Our single entities can do really well here. They can cycle charge and so on. But they're going to be getting counter skirmished really hard. We do have our unit of chariots, which is nice. And Grom has to run away from a Shaga. But there's a lot of ammunition left. I'm thinking we'll probably just call it GG here. Nevertheless, for now, we'll continue using our Shaggoths to the best of their ability. It's really too bad that our Chosen took so much damage. And given the amount of infantry left, whoops, that's HH, we'll call it GG and just move it on into the next game. So there we go. Lessons learned about chaos. It turns out they, yeah. Just, whoops, wrong button, wrong button. We just took the wrong build there. Yeah, just getting hard counter by this. I expected the Chosen to do a little bit better, but they fell rather quickly. Same with the Mirror Guard, and the Chaos Spawn were not really able to kill the Black Orcs. Our counter skirmish wasn't really enough, and it felt like the whole build just wasn't put together especially well. But we'll move on to the ace match, and let's see how that goes. So here we go for the final game against Spiritualism. We've bought a heavy guns build. We'll be using our Giselles and Rattling Guns to kill stuff like the Rat Ogres, and then we have Poison Wind Mortars to kill the infantry. There's some Plague Monks, but as long as our Wolf Rats do well, we're feeling fairly confident. Now our goal here is going to be summoning troops to stall out my opponent as long as possible. We'll just send them right on up into the Skaven Slaves. We'll shoot at the Wolf Rats. We have our counter Wolf Rats to deal with them, and our ranged troops can handle that quite well. Now the goal, we want to be killing off the Rat Ogres as quickly as possible. Morse Guitars Hellion and all the other troops, all very important to actually kill off. We'll summon a unit of Plague Monks to hold the front line. We'll bring in our Wolf Rats. We'll use our Rattling Guns, target down the Rat Ogres. Hopefully that works out okay. Summoned tons of different units. We're holding up the front line decently well. The Poison Wind Mortars have been doing great. Continue shooting the targets, and now that he's dodging with the Morse Guitars Hellion, you can choose some different targets. So the Wolf Rats are going to be charging into my opponent's Wolf Rats, while we actually lose a charge over here. That's actually a really rough misplay. We'll see if we can deal with this double assassin. The Rattling Guns have done rather well, but our backline's getting a little bit compromised. That's a bit of a worry. Poison Wind Mortars are still doing fine. Our Rats along the left flank are doing good, but our caster getting caught up in a little bit of a bad position. Nevertheless, the Giselles are still doing good. Our Rattling Guns are still doing good. And over here, I think we should be able to win this fight using our Rattling Guns, but I'm not entirely sure. Getting charged here on that flank was really painful. As for all these Skaven troops that are now converging in on top of us, we'll break and run with our guns. They're actually surprisingly mobile. And then we'll use our Giselles to finish off all the Rat Ogres. For our Lord, he's going to be running to safety. Our caster is as good as dead here, so we're going to leave him for dead and just escape with our Lord as best as we can. We can chase off all the Wolf Rats. That will be a pretty solid victory, since our opponent can't exactly he can't really catch our guns easily. They're very fast. They actually have a speed of 37, and if you look at these Plague Monks, they also have a speed of 37. Weapon teams are actually as fast as any other Skaven unit, and the fact that we have slows from the Rattling Guns means that you can't really do much to catch our troops. Our Wolf Rats are rallying for both sides. See how that goes. But there we go, the Rattling Guns are doing good. We'll turn these Rattling Guns to slow down the Plague Monks so that we can retreat with our troops. And we're just going to be shooting up our opponent now. Let's see, our Lord, too, still alive, faring decently well. Rattling Guns are going to be shooting at Skrolk. We have more than enough to kill off all the Rat Ogres. He's dodging with his Lords and so on. But there's just so much gunfire here that you can only dodge so well. As for the left flank, not doing great. And let's see, how are Wolf Rats doing? We have one at the edge of the map. We have one at the edge of the other side of the map. Okay. Nevertheless, still should be fine. We do get some of our guns caught up by the Rat Ogres, but we actually push them into army losses surprisingly quickly. And that's just because all of our guns are at such high ammunition. So, geez, I don't know how we won that. But that was a really fast army losses, and there we go. That's the game. Geez, what in the world just happened? How did we How did we win that? It felt like he was doing pretty good, but much like the game that we had against as Chaos, or yeah, much like the game we had as Chaos earlier, once you snipe out the heroes, the balance of power is pretty gross. If you look at the Ratling guns, they paid for themselves, except for one of them that got compromised. And yeah, we kited with weapon teams. Like I said, it's possible because of the slows from the Ratling guns. Poison Wind Mortars, as per usual, did really well. We shut down the Plague Monks, actually really well. They got no value. And the Wolf Rats just traded into each other. We could have microed better with our Wolf Rats, but it still worked out okay. Slowing down his troops with the summons worked out well too. And of course all the Giselles basically just paying for themselves. Nice. A pretty fun build. Pretty gross too. And I might keep running it in the future. It's actually pretty fun. But there we go. That's gonna be it for today. I'm going to be going and grabbing some food for myself. Hopefully in the future I'll have enough energy to run some longer streams. But for now, just to avoid any possible burnout situations, we'll be closing it out. But before we close off the stream, I will be sending you guys over if there's another multiplayer streamer streaming right now, but it doesn't look like that's the case. So thank you very much everybody for watching. The music that we'll be ending off for today is Wintergatten. And if you want to see any more content, we have VODs below. Anyone that missed my Faction War tournament run, you can see it on YouTube down below. So peace out guys, and I'll see you guys tomorrow at the same time.